The question keeps resurfacing no matter how much time passes, and that alone says everything about how deeply the story of Faye Peraya Malisorn and Yoko Apasra embedded itself into the hearts of fans. Did Faye betray Yoko by leaving her? Or did the world simply struggle to accept that two people can walk separate paths without one being the villain? The intensity of this question has less to do with facts and far more to do with emotional memory. Fans remember how it felt when Faye and Yoko existed as a unit, when their presence felt stable, familiar, and full of promise. When that stability disappeared, the instinct was not to ask what changed, but who caused it. Betrayal feels like an easy answer because it gives shape to loss. It turns confusion into certainty, gives pain a direction. But betrayal also demands intent, and intent is something no outsider can truly prove. What fans witnessed was a professional shift that disrupted a beloved dynamic. What they felt was grief. What followed was projection. In fandom culture, especially one built on emotional storytelling and representation, separation is rarely seen as neutral. It must mean someone chose themselves over someone else. It must mean loyalty was broken. Yet this framing ignores the reality that loyalty to another person does not require the sacrifice of one's future. Faye's departure from her previous professional structure was interpreted by many as a personal decision with personal consequences. The timing, the silence, and the lack of visible continuation of the pairing all fed into the belief that she walked away while Yoko stayed behind. But professional systems are not friendships. They are contracts, negotiations, and power dynamics. Leaving a system that no longer aligns with your vision is not the same as leaving a person. The industry rarely allows two artists equal freedom at the same time, and when one finds a door out, it does not mean they push the other back. Yoko's silence became the emotional center of the betrayal narrative. Fans looked at her quiet presence and filled it with meaning. To some it looked like heartbreak. To others it looked like patience. To many it felt like proof. But silence is not evidence. Silence can be survival. Can be restraint. It can be a refusal to let the public decide how your story should be told. By not speaking, Yoko did not confirm betrayal. She simply chose not to perform her emotions for consumption. What makes this story viral is not drama, but relatability. People recognize this pattern in their own lives. One person moves forward faster. The other remains in place. Outsiders assume abandonment. But life is rarely synchronized. Growth does not ask for permission. And staying does not automatically mean being left behind. Yet fans placed moral weight on movement itself. Faye's progress was seen as evidence of guilt rather than ambition. Yoko's steadiness was treated as evidence of loss rather than strength. The betrayal narrative also reveals how uncomfortable audiences can be with ambiguity. There was no public argument to dissect, no clear statement to quote, no confession to analyze. That absence created a vacuum, and fandom filled it with certainty because uncertainty is emotionally exhausting. Saying "we don't know" feels unsatisfying. Saying "she betrayed her" feels decisive. But decisive does not mean accurate. What often gets lost is the fact that both women continued to exist as individuals, not fragments of a broken whole. Faye did not erase Yoko from her past. Yoko did not define herself publicly through grievance. Both chose dignity over explanation. And that choice, while emotionally unsatisfying to some fans, may have been the healthiest one available to them. Betrayal requires malice or disregard. Nothing in their actions publicly confirms either. Perhaps the most honest truth is that fans were mourning something real, but mourning it in the wrong direction. The end of a shared chapter hurts, especially when it felt unfinished. But unfinished does not mean unjust. Not every ending needs someone to blame. Sometimes the pain comes from loving something that could not stay the same. And that pain deserves compassion, not a villain. As the betrayal narrative spread, it began to shape how both women were allowed to move forward. And this is where the conversation becomes even more uncomfortable. Once fans decide that betrayal occurred, everything afterward is filtered through that belief. Every success becomes suspicious. Every silence becomes strategic. Every unrelated decision becomes part of the same imagined storyline. Faye's independence was no longer just growth. It was framed as proof that she benefited while Yoko suffered. Yoko's quiet perseverance was no longer just professionalism. It was framed as endurance after abandonment. Neither framing is fair, and both strip the women of complexity. What is rarely acknowledged is how deeply gendered these expectations are. Female artists are often praised for ambition until that ambition disrupts emotional continuity. They are expected to carry loyalty like a moral obligation, even when loyalty requires self-erasure. Faye's choice to prioritize her future was judged not on its merits, but on how it made others feel. Yoko, meanwhile, was expected to embody grace and patience indefinitely, as if strength requires stillness. Both expectations are cages disguised as concern. The betrayal narrative also harms Yoko by turning her into a symbol rather than a person. It assumes she needed saving, defending, or avenging, without ever confirming that she felt wronged. In doing so, it removes her agency. It suggests that her story only matters in relation to someone else's departure. But Yoko's resilience lies precisely in her refusal to define herself through that lens. She continued. She endured. She chose not to weaponize silence. That is not weakness. That is control. Fans often ask why reconciliation or reunion has not happened if there was no betrayal. But reconciliation assumes damage. Reunion assumes absence of choice. Relationships can change without anyone being at fault. Distance can exist without resentment. Two people can respect each other and still move separately. Expecting visible proof of harmony places pressure on artists to perform emotional closure for public reassurance. Real life rarely works that way. What makes this story persist is not unresolved conflict, but unresolved expectation. Fans wanted permanence. They wanted reassurance that what they loved was safe. When that reassurance did not come, betrayal became a coping mechanism. It allowed people to stay emotionally invested without letting go. But holding on to that narrative prevents healing. It freezes both women in roles they did not choose and denies them the freedom to evolve without judgment. Letting go of the betrayal idea does not mean dismissing disappointment. It means reframing it. It means acknowledging that something meaningful existed and ended, and that endings are not failures. They are transitions. Supporting Yoko does not require condemning Faye. Supporting Faye does not require forgetting Yoko. The insistence on choosing sides reflects a fear that honoring one diminishes the other. In truth, it does not. Perhaps the most viral truth of all is the least dramatic one. No one was betrayed. Two people navigated a system that does not prioritize emotional continuity, and they did so in different ways. Fans were hurt because they cared, not because someone was cruel.